Welcome to Westborough Affordable Housing Trust meeting of Thursday, March 14, 2024. It is 9 a.m. and we're in Memorial Hall in Town Hall. The times are approximate and the agenda items are subject to change. This meeting will be recorded and broadcast by Westborough TV, and thank you. All right, I'm calling the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the approved minutes for the trust meeting of February 8, 2024. Do I have any, well, I have a motion and then we'll discuss if there's any changes.
Motion to approve.
Okay. Anybody have any changes? I didn't get a chance to go through them, and I roughly went through. I think they're okay from my perspective, but
Yeah, I agree.
okay. Did I get a second?
I'll second.
You second, okay. All right, all those in favor? Okay, good, thank you. All right, moving on. We have a lot to do today, so we are going to try to, I'm going to try to push this along quickly. One of the things, and I want to do it now before we go into project updates, is we are hopefully closing as of tomorrow on 3 Baylor Avenue. There's a, one of the, where I'm going to be signing some documents in a little bit as the town clerk comes up here, but one of the things we need to do is to vote to allocate $20,000 as part of an escrow on the property, and that's designed to, in the event, although we've done a lot of testing, in the event that they do find some remediated or extra issues with the oil spill from 2006 and they need to remove materials, etc., we will pay up to $20,000 out of that escrow. So I need a motion to create and authorize that escrow for the amount of $20,000.
So I move we allocate the sum of $20,000 to be placed in escrow as stipulated in the closing documents for 3 Baylor Avenue.
Second.
Second.
All right, got a second. Any questions or discussions on that? We will get the money back, assuming there's no, issues or a portion, if they only need to remediate a portion of it.
So,
Well, see you know.
so just a couple
Yeah, go
comments.
ahead.
We don't expect they're going to find anything. We've done more than ample due diligence. The DEP cleared the property in 2007. We had a type 1, level 1 assessment by a licensed site professional. The lender still had questions about what could be under the slab foundation. So Ty and Bond came back out, and under the supervision of asbestos experts,
They did core samples.
they did core samples,
And
and
there's nothing there.
they found nothing there. So we're also not building a basement. So the level of soil that even would be disturbed is minimal as well. We're not going down 8 feet to get a 6-foot basement in. So we'll go down a couple feet to,
To do a
allow
frost wall.
for the slab. But, it's not there, so it shouldn't be an issue. This is a safety measure.
Right.
The bank originally asked that we indemnify the bank in perpetuity,
Right.
which is a municipal entity we cannot, first of all, we cannot do. Secondly, we learned that the town and the trust holds no liability for any hazardous materials on the property
Right.
because the property was acquired through an involuntary tax taking.
Tax taken.
And so any future liability still remains with Northborough Oil.
Northborough Oil, who
So.
created the spill. Okay. Any other questions, discussion? All right. Take a vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Looks like we have 7-0 with 7 present. Thank you. Moving on, some project updates. 7 Lawton's Way. All right, that, we did close on that. We transferred the money in the amount of the $149,000 plus to do the buy-up so that it can remain affordable. They have a buyer there. I don't know the process. We were sort of a second, party to it. So, good news is for about $150K roughly, we were able to keep a house in Westborough affordable. Under the new regs, under the regs as they currently stand with AOHLC.
And the
So,
roof's
any
done,
questions on that?
And the roof's done, and the roof's inspected.
The roof was done, the
Yeah,
roof
that's
was
cool.
inspected. The only thing we're waiting for, I have their invoice, we just need a W-9 from them, and I've reached out twice now and haven't gotten it yet, so,
Yep.
well, balls in their court if they want the money, the 60,
want the
and it
money,
was
they
only
want-
6,800, they didn't need to do any underlayment.
Yep.
So, housing production plan, Steve?
Yes, so today's our quote-unquote big day. We have 2 meetings planned. One is from 10:30 to 11:30, and that's with mostly town employees. And then from 11:30 to 12:30, that's with town community folk. After that, we're doing what they call a windshield inspection, so drive around town and see some of the locations, as well as they're going to provide us with the next update, because we chatted maybe a week and a half ago, and that was more around who to invite for the meetings today. The second meeting today, we didn't get a lot of RSVPs. I think the timing just didn't work. So the hope is that Jenny is going to have a third meeting with other folk who couldn't make
Right.
that meeting to basically ask the same questions. That's TBD as to when that would happen. And then I believe it's in 2 weeks or so is our next meeting with the consulting firm to sort of get an update on the information that they get from today.
Right, and we did get the list of questions that they go through, because
Yeah.
it's a structured kind of interview from VHB, who's the firm that is going to produce the report by June-ish.
Yeah, and we did get a great response for the 10:30 meeting, much more than
Yeah,
originally
more
hoped
than we
for.
had, so,
But, we'll, hopefully, they said they should be able to moderate the
that
many,
number,
the
yeah.
many heads in the room, so to speak.
All right, good.
That's good. And I'll just iterate for the folks, for the community organizations that were invited, participation is very important. And because that gives not just, the statistical data, but it gives, the anecdotal
Yeah.
information and the qualitative work that informs the report. And again, as a trust, we're planning on using this document to guide our work as far as priorities in the mix of what we look to preserve and create, going forward. So
you know-
I would argue that if there are groups that didn't respond, if Jenny's comfortable with it, if we can help do some outreach
Right.
to
Yeah.
them and encourage their participation, with everything going on, they may not have been aware
Yeah,
of this and the importance of it and their role in it. I'm going to put on Kate. You're really well connected in the nonprofit community.
Well, I was just
and
to
stuff.
say, like, I would love to know who was invited and
I have-
how that.
I have-
The
I have
invite,
the
the invite
list,
list is in. The invite
Yeah.
list is in the
It's in the
packet.
packet. It shows, I think it shows the organizations. It might not show the names.
Right.
But
when
I
we get
have the, I have the
Oh,
list of
that's
the
what that
names
is,
as well.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. It was like,
Okay.
Well, another consideration there is that probably some of these groups are really core, right? And we want to make sure that they are involved. And others, it's nice to get their feedback, and they will have some thoughts. But, hopefully we at least have that core group assembled, and then they're providing their input.
Yeah.
Okay,
What's interesting is I had reached out to the Veterans Advisory Board to give them a heads up.
yeah.
I'm their liaison from the Select Board, and the comment back was, yeah, we'll talk about it at our next meeting. So hopefully they're there today.
Yeah.
And then their next, that's the first time they've been asked, to provide information about
Veterans.
housing security and veterans.
Oh, wow.
And the problems
That's
they're
good.
facing, and they do a lot
Yeah.
of casework
They do.
Yeah.
in that regard. So it'll be interesting. It'll be good. I'm hoping they'll be there. And
Yeah, I don't remember
providing
offhand, but I-
providing that feedback, so.
Okay. Okay, once again, moving on, I see our town clerk has joined us for the signing. So I'm wondering if it makes sense. Next item was the Humborough Assistance Program.
Let's do
Maybe
the
what I
three-day
can do is
first.
step away.
You can't step away.
I can't step away.
I'll walk you through the signing. You cannot step away.
All
and sign.
right.
So
All
our
right.
town clerk is
Miss-
here to
Miss
witness.
Ledoux.
So there's actually some, I'll do the intro for this one.
Yeah, you
Okay.
can,
So is-
oh, yeah, here, I had this, but we're going to sign those.
So as the community knows, The trust acquired 3 Baylor Avenue from the town. We went through a full informal public RFP process to a developer. What we're doing today is executing the purchase and sale and the closing documents as previously approved and attested to by the board. Chair Edward F. Bain is authorized to sign on behalf of the trust. In doing this, there's a land development agreement
Yep.
that ensures that the developer will construct an affordable unit in compliance with the RFP and the RFP response within 24 months. Should that not happen, the trust has the right to reclaim the property with no liability or anything owed to the developer and find someone else to do the work. We do not expect it to be a problem.
Yeah.
So the first document, Ed, you need to,
The PNS,
you need to initial
yeah, because we
and
did
then
make
sign,
one
and there are
slide.
2 copies. And attached to the PNS is a town clerk stamped true and attest that the minutes were properly done and filed from our September 4th meeting, which is when we authorized the funding for the subsidy of the project. And that the actual subsidy will scale based on interest rates. The higher the interest rate, the lower the selling price, the greater the subsidy. The lower the interest rate, the higher the selling price will be as affordable, the lower the subsidy. As a refresher, our subsidy cannot exceed $172,000.
And we've also put in that in case interest rates drop,
And so,
and as a
Right,
result
so
of the
ours will
selling
fluctuate.
price,
Ours will
right, the selling
fluctuate.
price goes up, we get 80% of that
right,
increase
benefit,
in the sale price.
yeah. And so there's, now he's signing the land development agreement, which
development.
holds the restrictions on what developer can do with the land.
Okay, that's the LDA.
Okay, next is the
The
affordable
affordable
housing
housing
restriction. This, the developer buying the property is actually giving us, technically, they give the trust the restriction. So we are the responsible agency for this. This establishes this property as an affordable home under Massachusetts general law. He's required to get it certified as affordable by the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. And that is in perpetuity. So this house will be part of our subsidized housing inventory forever. And that gets filed with the deed,
Yep, as a deed rider.
is a rider to the deed.
I got both of those, right?
And you're signing this of your pre-acted deed for
Yes,
estate
yes, I
purposes.
am. Oh, wait a minute. Got
Yeah,
extra stuff here.
You might want to unclip it. Yeah, that's the, okay, that has to be attached to the back. after you
Okay.
sign it.
Oh, that was the
The
attachment.
minutes, yeah.
Yeah. I
So
just wanted to make
now
sure I
he's
got that.
signing an escrow agreement. Folks might be aware that in 2004, there was a home heating oil spill on the property. The trust has had the property examined by a licensed sites professional, not just a level 1 survey, which came back negative, but the request of the financer for the project, we actually drilled through the foundation, the slab foundation, did core samples of the soil underneath the house, also found nothing. Even so, there's a slim chance that some soil might need to be relocated on the property. We're putting funds in escrow for the period of the construction to defray some of those costs should they occur.
And finally, we have.
And finally
quitclaim.
is the quitclaim deed, which will be signed and filed. For the property. And so, and while we're signing the documents today, the closing will take place tomorrow.
And we'll need to note for the other signatory, the typographical edits. in
Yes.
The purchase and sale agreement, to clarify that this is a 24-month period.
Yep.
Yep, I initialed those.
Who
The
represents us at the closing tomorrow?
We don't need anyone at the closing because we're
No,
signing, we're
no, now that we
executing.
do this, we'll
document that.
overnight it to the, I guess, buyer's attorney? Yeah.
Cool.
No, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So today's the
14th.
14th.
It is Pi Day. Well,
It
after
goes on.
Pi.
It goes on forever. It's totally irrational. Sorry, dad jokes. Dad jokes.
I love it. Love it so much.
That one, I don't believe does.
Which one?
Okay.
Are you saying you're missing a?
No, it doesn't. That one doesn't, that one doesn't need to be notarized because it doesn't get filed.
Okay.
It doesn't get filed with the registrar.
Do it tomorrow?
Well, either that or just leave it blank, I just wanted to.
You can leave it blank.
Yeah.
They fill that in tomorrow. Yeah, they'll fill that in tomorrow.
They'll put it in. All right, we'll just leave that. And I did the 20, I changed the dates on those too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just double check, triple check, are you all set with the deed? Did I?
Oh,
Yeah,
nope.
you need to review that.
You need to, I think, notarize. Put the date. We need
14th day
documents signed.
of March.
Do we need to document, like photograph evidence of this?
Document the document.
It's very exciting. What would be appropriate document signing music?
Keep thinking of the food from Jeopardy. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming up. and
Yeah,
doing
thanks,
this.
thanks.
My pleasure.
I should have brought more pens and we have ceremonial pens.
Sign each letter of your name with a
We
different
all
pen.
pose with our, yeah, with our pens above the signature page.
Yes. Yes.
Look, it's gotta be something.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's always the most obvious.
You know, before you leave, just stop by the office so I can have you sign the notary.
Okay,
Okay?
Okay,
will do.
All right.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
S-
Deborah.
Can we stay on this for a bit longer? I just want to understand
Yeah.
our next steps. Do they already have the financing? Are we comfortable with that already?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, the construction loan has been approved
Right.
based upon back and forth with all the various codicils in these documents, and they're just ready to close. I mean,
And in the next, part of the next step, they will provide a design that we'll review, and obviously we aren't being
we've seen
reasonable, but-
preliminary designs. It's
Okay.
up to them. In our
Right.
RFP, we specified key components of it, like, it's got to be stretch code. They also listed,
Bedrooms,
a
number of
variety of
bedrooms,
things.
number of
Yes.
bathrooms.
Yeah, bathrooms, bedrooms,
Footprints.
heating, heat pump, a lot of the, both environmental as
Sure.
well as sizing of the house. So that was in the RFP, which they,
Yes, agreed.
agreed to, and we have copies of, with that. So basically, I believe their next step will
Right.
start to be physically put a shovel in the ground and
Okay.
start
Next step
construction.
will be the demolition permit.
Well,
It's
yeah,
gotta get a
yeah, they have to get a demo permit
Gotta
from
get a
the
building permit,
Historical
building permit.
Commission and the town.
Do we have ongoing involvement then? Will there be final designs or?
We,
They have to
we
find-
might, we
Maybe
would want to
informally.
keep in touch and
Sure,
monitor, but there's nothing we need to do actively, maybe reactively if there's an issue or
If there-
we identify something.
Upon
but-
sale or something, yes.
Yeah, we'll monitor the process as they go through the
Right.
planning process with the planning board
Mm-hmm.
and can provide comment to the planning board.
Right, but
as-
we're not expecting that,
as
because it sounds like
appropriate.
we've laid out exactly what we want. We've seen
Yeah.
preliminary
Yep.
designs that address those
In-
desires,
In the
yes.
RFP response we accepted actually had floor plans
Right.
and graphics of what,
Oh, that they expect.
rendering of what the
yes.
building will look like, so.
The LIP, they have to file an LIP with EOHLC,
Mm-hmm.
and part of the LIP, they'll have to come back and get letters of support from the Board
Okay.
of Selectmen and from us, and I don't remember who else, but there's a couple of groups of people.
Yeah.
They have to
Right.
get letters of support. That can be done in parallel with the construction activity.
Right. And this particular developer has built a
Yes.
number of
This
Yeah.
is,
these kind of units, so we feel comfortable,
Right.
they know,
With-
they know the company knows the drill, as we say.
And the affordability restriction that we hold, does that mean that we would get involved if and when it's sold? And probably each time it's
Yes.
sold in some way,
Well,
just to
yes, so
verify?
each-
Or only if we're concerned,
Right,
maybe,
so-
is when we would step in, is that? how that
so
would work?
each
Yes.
time each time the property's sold in the future,
Right.
Is put up for,
they-
yeah,
what
put up for
happened-
sale.
well, what happens is the homeowner who's selling the
Right.
property has to notify the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities that they have intent to convey,
Right,
and that starts a process. EOHLC is responsible for making sure that there's an affirmative marketing program, so they typically will pay for an agent who specializes in affordable housing to start marketing the property.
okay.
The notification will also come to us as the
Right.
holder of the restriction, and by law to the town as well. The deed restriction states that there's a period of time in which the house should be sold.
Right,
The town, and also the trust is the restriction holder, has a right to purchase as well.
Right. But-
And so,
so an ongoing,
typically,
yeah.
exercising that right, what we've done in the past, and what we've been recommending to the town on properties where that's their role, is to exercise that right should an eligible buyer not be found.
Right.
Within the 90-day window or any authorized extension.
Because
And
if
so
they
then
don't,
we would then acquire the property at the affordable selling price and then could put it back on the market as affordable without a time restriction and go back to lottery and go back to the marketing.
Right. What it does is it allows us to, if they cannot find a suitable buyer after that period of time, and I believe it's 90 days, but whatever the period of time is, it can then, the current homeowner can market it at market rate values, which.
Well, the next step is it's sold at the affordable rate to an ineligible buyer.
Correct.
Right. And then
If that fails,
there's really no mechanism for this to ever go market rate. Because ineligible buyer is someone who wouldn't qualify for affordable housing.
right,
But the deed restriction stays. So when an affordable home sells to an ineligible buyer, when that buyer sells, it goes through the same process to get an eligible buyer in.
Okay,
But the
yes,
restriction's written where we as the trust or the town as a whole,
right,
and actually,
Have the
the
right-
state also has a right to step in.
okay, just
To
moving on.
move-
yeah.
Yeah,
know, to
maybe
make
you
it
can
happen.
take this
Well,
offline.
and I
Well,
was
this
just
is
trying to
public.
understand our ongoing obligations. This sounds like it's pretty minimal.
It's a
We need
monitor-
letters of
it's
support.
purely a monitoring
look-
obligation.
Yes.
Yep.
Part of the reason we
Yes.
funded an assistant town planner is so that there's a staff person who can help us with any
Ongoing,
ongoing,
yeah.
year
This
by
is-
year, month by month kind of monitoring activity.
That's it. That makes sense to me. Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the Homeborough program. Alan and Kate.
So we reached out to Metro West Collaborative Development, As folks remember, we partnered with them during COVID for our emergency rental assistance program. And we approached them about developing a scope of services to administer our down payment assistance program. We've also reached out to them about our hopefully upcoming rental assistance program, but until we know if we have the grant, not much to discuss there. So they came back with a statement of work and a proposal with a price. The total cost for the first year would be $11,250. In subsequent years, since there wouldn't be startup tasks, it would be a little under $10,000 a year. Because that's over $10,000, Mass General Law procurement rules, we need to solicit at least two other bids or quotes. It's not a formal process with an RFP. We simply, the second document in this section of the packet is a simple request for bid memo that explains what it is, outlines the scope of work, and we can send it. When we did the emergency rental assistance program, we sent letters to 3 or 4 people.
I believe so.
I mean,
Memory
I
serves,
think
it was early
RAC,
on.
RAC, and a few others. So the next step is for us to send this memo out to those organizations with a cover letter asking for a response within a certain window of time. If we get responses, we can evaluate them. If we don't get responses, we can move ahead with Metro West Collaborative Development. And the motion. So our next meeting, we would evaluate. If we have multiple bids, we'd evaluate the bids and pick, and then enter into an agreement. If we don't get other responses, our next meeting, we could potentially have an agreement ready to move forward. The goal is still to do what's necessary to ramp up the program so that we can be open for applications starting July 1st with the start of the fiscal year or shortly thereafter.
So I will try to get that list. I know you've asked for it.
Yeah,
I will
haven't had a
dig
chance to
through emails to look for that, the Sarah mailing list, so we can get it out to those same folks. Okay, moving on. Any questions on that? Okay, good. Emergency rental assistance program.
Very briefly, Metro West Collaborative Development is going to provide is working on a statement of work for managing that. It'll be similar to what we did previously
Sarah.
during COVID. Once we know that we have the grant, because I'm hoping and anticipating we're going to win the grant, because I really
This
want
is
us
the
to.
TD grant.
This is a grant from the TD
Bank.
Bank Charitable Foundation, part of their Homes for Everyone program. Once we know if we're awarded the grant, then we would proceed again with this, with a statement of work. If it's more than 10,000, we'd have to get competitive bids. To move forward.
Right, and what we did is we voted last time to put up, the grant is for $175,000 that we're applying for, and we're putting up 10%, 17,500 for a show of good faith. So do we know when we might hear?
April.
April, okay. Hopefully, if by next month, if before our meeting, we might hear. Okay. The 3 Baylor Avenue is next on the agenda. I don't know if there's anything more we need to do.
We're done
I
with
think
that.
we've covered everything.
And by the way, congratulations to the trust.
Yes.
It's a first. We are definitively building our first net new unit of affordable housing in Westborough.
Right. So, it's taken a while, but, we had a few curveballs thrown at us, which we caught and actually hit.
Yes.
Or we didn't catch them, we actually hit them out of the park. Okay. Moving on, any questions on that, on the 3 Baylor Avenue? I mean, we talked about that. I think we're good to go. Okay. Next one, topic. The annual town meeting preparation. As we know, we have an annual town meeting coming
Do you
up.
want to hand me the,
Huh?
do you want to hand me the
Oh,
feed, and I can put up the slides for everyone? And for the-
we'll get this up.
for
And
the
we
viewing audience.
basically have two articles on the town meeting. One is a request to transfer 45 High Street Extension over to the trust for further examination, analysis, et cetera, to see if it is viable for development. We believe it is. And the second is to do a hometown, a home rule article for the legislature that makes it more efficient for us. So, Alan, I don't know, you have the slides, and I think they were in your packet as well, folks, that we're planning to use.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So for Article 21, this is a standard article, so we have up to 10 minutes to do a presentation. Past experience tells us, keep it short, keep it sweet, answer any questions. So this is the wording of the article as it appears on the warrant. We'll provide Ed with a motion. which will
I'll get a motion from the
He'll move the
moderator
Right.
or.
It'll be moved the article is printed in the warrant because we're not editing it. And then the moderator will defer to Ed. We'll talk about what the
What our
project.
plans are, what our,
A
you know,
little bit of the history, that we asked the select
Yep.
board for permission to assess the property. That's been complete. It is a potential site for affordable and moderate income housing. We have multiple potential concepts for small homes, with the conditions. We've not yet decided whether these would be rental or ownership and what the mix of family, veteran, and senior housing might be. And I think we should only show one design concept,
Yes.
which is the one we're moving forward. The goal is not to have people discuss the design concept. And
Why would you show
That's
any
pretty-
design
yep.
concepts? We're looking for the property.
that's all.
Which we will develop appropriately. And at this point, yes, we have concept. We're not looking to advertise
Advertise
concepts,
or
right?
approve.
Okay, right, that's a good point.
Advertising
What we-
concepts, just ask for feedback that you don't want.
Okay, so you're right. We don't want this to devolve. So we'll pull the design concept slide out. Note that it is, I think we should mention that we will be scheduling that when we talk about the design concepts at our regular meetings, they're weekday, that, we will be communicating with butters and we will have a session at some point on these
As we
projects.
develop concepts, we will hold neighborhood input sessions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
simple.
so we'll pull out the design
Yeah,
concepts.
I think
Believe me,
that's
we're a
just
long-
begging for people to
We're
start
a long
to
way from having a
re-engineer.
concept that we're ready to proceed with.
Okay, so next slide is basically reminding people that this strategic alignment with the housing goals and master plan. It's within the downtown planning overlay district and the senior overlay district. The property actually doesn't comply with the senior overlay district because it's not 5 acres. But it's indicative that the town is comfortable with higher density housing in this area, right? So, and certainly, it potentially is compliant with the downtown planning overlay district, depending what our final design is, which can allow 4+ units per acre. We're looking to
Yeah.
meet the community needs, and our intention in doing this, and that, we can't put it in the transfer statement. The way the warrant article is worded, the select board can set terms and conditions on the transfer of the property to the trust. And we are suggesting that if we're unable to permit the project within a defined period of time, or any extension on that, or if the select board identifies a different municipal use for the property, that the select board could request the property back.
Now, would we obtain the permits or would the developer? Do we need to clarify that the trust or the, are we
Yeah,
conveying
haven't
this
made-
similar to
We
Baylor?
haven't made that decision yet.
Yes,
Right.
Somebody has to obtain permits.
right,
So if,
It's not clear how to go about that yet.
yes.
Right,
But this,
so-
yeah.
this is basically saying if there's not a permitted project,
Yeah.
the town could take the property back. If we were to transfer if we were to do what we're doing with Baylor Avenue and transfer the
Right,
property
right.
prior to permit, then we would go to the select board and say, we're doing this before we want your okay before we
Yes.
transfer.
What if we just said something like permits are not obtained within a defined time period? Because again, we don't know if it's going to be us or a developer or
Well-
some,
Yeah, we don't need,
Yeah.
we don't need to say that.
it's
I
on
mean,
here.
We're asking
Yeah.
the town meeting to delegate to
Right.
the Board of Selectmen the judgment
Mm-hmm.
as to the ability to not transfer the property if the Board of Selectmen finds a higher and better use for the property.
Yes.
Right.
It's
But-
that simple.
But I'm just looking at that line there that says if we don't
Yeah,
obtain
it's-
permits. That's what I'm just saying. Should
Well,
we, can we say
yeah.
something like if permits are not obtained? Just because again, it sounds like we're not necessarily the
Well,
one who's going to do it.
Yeah, I think this is, once again,
Yeah.
this is
We can make this,
presentation
Yeah.
to the people saying,
Right,
if we fail to move forward,
right.
okay, the select board, basically the key thing is the select board can set the terms and conditions. They can
Exactly.
say, if you don't get, if you don't do whatever initial work you do to decide that you then want to build, et cetera, and get permits, et cetera. The key point is once we go to the point of getting permits,
Right.
we've sort of sunk a lot of work into this, and we don't want them to be able to pull it back.
Yeah, I mean, something
Yes.
to remember is that the slides and the information that we use at the town meeting are not part of the legally binding record. The legally binding record is
the warrant article.
the warrant article and/or as modified by the motion made on town meeting floor. That's what becomes legally binding, so
Right.
this is all nice information. It's not legally binding on anybody.
Well, no, this is information to encourage people on why they should vote for this.
Right.
We can change the wording that, the select board can set terms and conditions on the transfer
That-
to reclaim and just say
Yeah.
generically to reclaim the property if the project doesn't move forward in a reasonable time frame or the town identifies another municipal use. And the reason we put municipal use is this would prevent, not that it would ever happen, but municipal use means the town says, we want it because the town is going to use it for something, not we want it
Understood.
back because there's a different
Yes.
developer
Yeah.
who wants to
Understood.
do something on it.
Sell it to somebody for
Okay.
some strange reason.
We'll let people know what approval means. It means the select board gives the trust legal standing to pursue permitting options and financing for the project. We'll be going before the planning board, the conservation commission, the zoning board of appeals, and that also there's no cost to the town.
Right. The only issue with the cost of town that was brought up when we were doing the presentation to the AFC, we had one citizen get up and argue that, well, the property has been assessed at a certain amount, so we really are, there is a cost to the town in the sense,
There's-
in fact, let me finish,
Okay.
please. The issue is, the town hasn't done anything for 75 years with this property, okay? And no one's come forward to buy it. So what this will do will actually generate tax revenue once, if and when the development is complete, that the town currently, because it's a municipal property, we get no tax revenue from that. It's just sitting there.
Yeah, there-
So when,
Right. The
I'm
statement
going to
that,
make that point,
Well-
just to
Right.
try to head off somebody saying,
I mean, a simple way to say it is, when it's developed, it'll go back on the tax rolls.
right,
Nice,
I
simple,
agree, yes,
one-liner.
that's a good.
yep, we'll
good-
put that in,
No downside, potential upside.
right.
It's a good
And
story.
the statement that there's no cost to the town is true.
It's
The town
absolutely true.
is
Yes.
not going to incur any cost in transferring the property to us. We will cover all the recording and legal
All the,
fees
yeah, all the legal
involved in
work.
doing that. The town generates no revenue off that property. I don't believe it's actually ever spent any money that we can determine maintaining the property. And so, yes, and we should mention that, when the project's complete, it will, the
Yeah, it'll be
property will be,
bringing-
the
bringing-
property will be added to the tax rolls.
Tax rolls.
And we probably can't really begin any of our work until it's transferred to us, right? So
Exactly.
we probably haven't really done
Right.
anything.
Well, we did a little bit of
Yes.
just concept work and like, is
Sure.
this doable? Does this smell like something that is reasonable? And Hank had WDA do some preliminary.
You need site control to
Right.
move forward with any kind of formal, official permitting documentation, EOHLC work. Site control can be, I mean, you could get away with a memo of understanding. Generally, that's kind of weak. Typically, site control is a PNS.
Right, and the site control is really also necessary for looking at state funding and
Sure,
grant
can apply for
opportunities.
funding.
And so,
You're wasting your time and money until you have site control.
Right.
so,
Because we may want to do borings to make sure that, you know, there's no
Environmental,
ledge or
yes,
stuff, but
yes, yep.
anyhow. Any other question? And then what we do is we open up for questions to the floor.
Now, what do you think, do we have a sense of what we think the trickiest questions will be?
The
to
only
say.
one is, the only one that was brought up in that AFC presentation was, well, this is, you know, you say there's no cost to the town.
Okay.
And we'll deal with that. You know, there may be questions, you know, even though we say, well, we're going to be, you know, once the transfer is done, there's all we can do until we get the property is to do appropriate interaction with the butters.
Sure.
And keep people informed as we move forward. You know, the select board
There's
and all.
often a citizen who will say, rather than give the property away to somebody, why don't we sell it? And the answer is very simple. Nobody in their right mind would buy that piece of property.
Right.
There's
Unless they
a
have a
more
plan,
polite
yeah.
way to say that, but that's the basics of it.
Yeah, just say, well, nobody has bought it in 75 years.
well, yeah,
And
to the best of our knowledge, no one's ever expressed interest in the property. And the reason being is the challenge is, if you have to pay for the property, on top of the work that has to happen on the property to make it buildable, i.e. relocation of wetlands, as a non-conforming single-family lot, it would make private development infeasible, right? You wouldn't be able to build a house with enough value to make money on that. For the trust, however, transferring the property to the trust, our ability to get state, federal, you know, and nonprofit funding to help with the project, and the fact that we're looking to do non-conforming construction, you know, under comprehensive permit, we should be able to make the financials of the project work to generate for affordable homes.
And then is this one of those areas where we might expect neighbors to say, wait a second, not here, not near me, or is that not
Yeah,
a position?
absolutely.
That could happen.
There's often
Right.
somebody who'll come forward and say,
Right.
hey, I walk my dog there. Why can't we just keep it as open space?
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, there are some outliers that come to
Sure.
the town meeting especially with the purpose of asking questions that have no basis in fact.
Right.
Right. And if someone says, well, why here, why not in another neighborhood,
This is available.
It's available, it's available land.
Yes.
I'll speak personally, I believe it's the sentiment of the board, of the trustees, but we believe that it's on the edge of a single-family neighborhood, right? And it's on the edge of a neighborhood with 2- and 3-story townhomes that run a full block long, right? And so we're not putting up multi-story, multi-family units. We're putting 4 small, single-family homes.
that's the
Yeah.
initial
Right.
concept.
And so
That's
it's-
what we would,
so
if we're
the-
pushed on
the-
that.
The initial concept is 4 small cottage-style homes in a cottage, in a courtyard layout that, from a design, from a physical appearance, it provides a transition between the single-family home lots that abut and a large townhome development. And that it wouldn't, and given the wooded nature of the lot, the location, the low traffic volume on the street,
So it was a
we
thoughtful
don't-
selection, yeah.
we
it's a
don't
good
believe this
selection
is
for this
imposing.
purpose.
That said, as we refine concept and start going through the planning process, there will be public hearings
Yes.
and public meetings
Exactly.
with abutters for community feedback and input on it.
Right, and that's the
And-
time when, you know, we will have more details to which people can comment,
Excellent.
okay?
Yes, so hopefully that'll
Yeah.
respond to the likely questions.
Okay.
Okay. Article
Why don't we
27.
go to, 27.
So I'm going to apologize to town meeting for the length of the warrant article. The motion will be to approve the article as printed in the warrant. I'll explain that what we're asking, the warrant article is asking the select board to petition the legislature for a home rule petition that will simplify the procurement process for any projects we may do at 6 Beach Street and 45 High Street. It has 3 sections. The first is exemption from components of Mass General Law 149, which is the overarching procurement. We're looking at it with respect to simplifying the bidding and contracting part, not prevailing wage, which is also part of this legislation. Section 2 says that should we not transfer the property, should we transfer the property in any way, shape, or form to an entity that's not controlled by the trust, we would have to follow Chapter 30B procurement bidding process for that, okay? What that means, though, for example, is if we say, the Westborough Housing Authority wants to partner with us because it's going to be rental units and they're going to manage it, if we create a redevelopment corporation to secure funding and we hold 3 seats on the board and they hold 2, then it's still within our control. We can transfer the property at no cost. And we don't have to put it out to bid. We don't have to go through the central registrar. We can do that. It's still within our control. And then the third just says it takes effect upon its passage. The reality is that will be 6 to 12 months following town meeting. The Secretary of State has to say it's a good warrant article, and then the select board can do its thing, and then it works its way through the committees in the legislature.
Now, a similar one was done in Acton, and
This
was
is a
successful.
common mechanism for housing authorities. This was most recently done in Acton. That's the template we're using. The background on this is that there's 3 ways we can arrange financing. The trust can be the general contractor and put everything out to bid. We can create a redevelopment corporation specifically for the project as a way of acquiring funds, or we can transfer the property or properties to nonprofit or for-profit developer, as we did with 3 Baylor Avenue.
Right.
Options 2 and 3 make the property eligible for federal and state low-income tax credit financing. And that's basically reducing the amount of financing necessary, because between the federal government and the state government, you get 13% of the value of the project as a tax credit, not a deduction, but a credit. And so it lowers the cost of the project and what needs to be borrowed by 13%. We want to have that option open. The rules in Chapter 149 make that procurement process, by definition, makes the project ineligible for the federal tax credits. So by removing it, by exempting these 2 products and properties and projects we may do on them from these aspects of Mass General Law, Chapter 149, we simplify the procurement process, specifically reducing the need for filed subcontractor bids, which saves time and money, and the projects will then legally qualify. They'll meet the requirements to apply for low-income tax credit financing, and again, it does not exempt us from paying prevailing wage or adhering to preference provisions in the law, right? What it really means, if someone bids to do the construction and they have an electrical subcontractor, they work on all of their projects, they can just get costing from them and use it. They don't have to put the electrical subcontract out to bid following the same process that we use with the general contractor, with bids published for 60 days, sealed, opened, et cetera, et cetera. And so it gives them more control.
One question there, Alan. It said there it exempt the projects at 45 High and 6 Beach. Does it not, going forward, exempt, like,
No,
unknown
so
projects, or
all of the precedent is that these go through the legislature for specific projects.
Okay.
And
It's
that-
got to be project by project.
And so
Okay.
we could, I mean, it's been, our state senator suggested making a blanket for all projects. The problem is that's never been done before.
Okay.
And,
So if we had a new project, we'd have to.
right, so if and when we
Reapply,
move
so to
forward
speak.
with anything on Rogers Road, with the Housing Authority, we would jointly sponsor a warrant article for that project.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
send it through the legislature. I have requested from our state senator that this could be a good piece of legislation that generally exempts housing authorities and housing trusts from these provisions of Chapter 149. And rather than every authority and every trust
Every
having to
time,
jump
yeah.
through the hoops.
Especially because then you have to get it voted on and then.
So
Delay
since,
6 to 12,
since we
yeah.
don't know definitively what we're doing with the projects, why are we asking to do this now? It's to do parallel efforts. Once town meeting votes, and then and if the select board files the home rule petition with the legislature, at that point, it'll take 6 to 9 months. I will point out that our home rule petition, that gives us the trust, the ability to act as the Housing Partnership Committee or create a subcommittee to do that work. That was approved at town meeting last October. It's had its third reading, but it's not yet made it to the floor of the House of Representatives. And so November, December, January, February, March, we're 5 months in. So knowing that it's going to take 6 to 12 months, once the town finishes its side of the effort, it lets us get this in place in parallel with the design, engineering, and permitting work that we expect to do, and our work towards project financing. And so that hopefully by the time this makes it through the legislature, we'll know if, however, how the projects are going to move forward, how they're going to be built, and then if low-income tax credits are part of the financing mechanism and the funding mechanism, then we will know that they're available. Doing it now could reduce total project development times by up to a year, which is just time is money, as we know in municipal work. And so it actually lowers the total project cost to compete with private development. And again, we need this to be eligible for the low-income tax credit.
Seems like a brilliant solution to me. Kudos to you and to the folks who've been working on this and pulled this solution together. Obviously, decreasing costs, increasing efficiency. These are fantastic contributions to what we're trying to do. So really appreciate the work that's been done. And it's a great, hopefully it's a fantastic.
I mean, it's a great idea. It opens up opportunities.
Yes,
We may not
exactly,
need to use
exactly.
it, but it opens up the opportunity.
Yes.
I think the challenge on town meeting floor is,
Sure.
it's one thing to walk through zoning regulations, right? Or, animal control regulations, let's talk about chickens, right?
Which we've done.
Yeah.
And bylaws, this is, this is an act that has to happen by town meeting, and it is it's very arcane procedural work. And so, I've gone through like 40 versions of the slides, because how do we,
Present it, yeah.
Yeah.
present this,
And
right?
I think what you've got there seems very straightforward to me and makes sense in terms of the storytelling. So hopefully our neighbors will agree. And
But you're
I
an
guess you
attorney.
could, yeah.
You're an attorney.
But I'm the one who would dig into the rules and what's underneath them if anyone would.
Yeah.
So hopefully if it makes sense this way to me, it will to our neighbors who are at the meeting as well.
Yeah. I think what often covers a multitude of sins is saying this is something that's been done in other communities
And successful.
for
yes.
for a positive outcome. And, we can cite Acton as the most recent one, et cetera. It's not that we're trying to, farm new ground on this. That often goes a long way of assuaging concerns that people may have. So.
Just to confirm, you did a little tour around on these articles with different town committees, correct? And you've gotten approval or?
Yeah,
yes.
these two, the.
Planning board approved it.
Planning board approved-
unanimously.
AFC.
AFC approved it unanimously.
And the select board as well.
Supported, and the select board.
Because I think that also means a lot to voters,
Yeah.
to see that written or to see that, or to
I'll-
hear it.
I'll include it in the presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, I often vote based on what other committees have already been told about this
Right.
article. So-
John often will, our moderator will often call that out at the beginning of the presentation, saying this article has been, or the motion has been approved by, or supported by these groups, and they nod with that. Okay. Article 41, this is in response, actually, to a citizen's petition. There's 12 or 14, what's the final number?
14.
14.
So
Citizens,
One is binding, because it's an appropriate, it's a
it's an
transfer of funds.
appropriation.
It's appropriation with a transfer of funds. The other
others are
13 are
non-binding.
non-binding resolutions.
Right, and, you know, we don't know what generated this, but, you know, basically, as you can see from, if you want, next slide. And I'll be presenting, basically what we want to do is do a motion. We're in the idea of having affordable housing done throughout town. You know, equally is a bad term because define that, what's
Right.
equally. Thanks to Alan, he's written up some wording here to equitably, you know, to affordable housing to be equitably throughout the entire town to ensure that these units best meet the needs of the individual families they intend to serve and for the overall benefit of the town. This isn't something new that we would have ever disagreed with, nor, you know, we never stated per se, but it was sort of implied that we're developing affordable housing. You know, if people have land that they think is viable, please let us know, that we can take a look at. So, the next
But
slide.
if I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
Some other kind of, so, in speaking with John Arnold, he's been researching and looking at the best way to handle the number of citizens petitions, particularly since, with the exception of one, they're non-binding, right? And just a side note for people watching, even though they're non-binding, right, you can walk into our town clerk's office and you can see the warrant articles and the votes dating back to 1717. They're documented. And yes, there was a time if you didn't show up for town meeting, they'd send the constable to
Oh,
you
to
to retrieve
drag
you because you were violating the law, or town by law. So,
Cool.
you know, so even though these are non-binding, the vote gets recorded in perpetuity and represents a statement about the town.
Yeah.
Which is why I believe the Select Board and Advisory Finance Committee have done a very good job of addressing these in a forthright and appropriate, serious manner. So John is moderator, he's thinking of the best way to manage this. His plan is to propose a rule for the meeting that on the non-binding citizens petitions that would limit discussion to 15 minutes. 7.5 minutes for the proponent, up to 7.5 minutes for people in opposition, and it would be the proponent could either do 2.5-minute presentation or 5-minute presentation, I think, or 3.5-minute presentation. I think he's going to limit the initial presentation. And then someone in opposition could have 2.5 minutes and back and forth, but it will be limited 3 pro, 3 against, and then there would be a motion to, he would just put it to a vote. That being a rule of the meeting, he's going to propose that to town meeting, and there needs to be a 2/3 vote to accept that rule. Okay, if the rule is not accepted, then this will follow the general practice of the meeting where the proponent can speak for 10 minutes, an opponent can speak for 10 minutes, and debate goes on until someone says, move the motion.
Move the motion,
Okay.
or there's
So-
some more discussion, yeah.
With respect to this one, this was discussed at the Select Board meeting on
Right.
Tuesday night. The Select Board voted unanimously against this because it's not, the word equal is problematic in that it doesn't reflect the way housing is developed. You know, housing production happens and certainly doesn't develop the way affordable housing is built.
Right.
The Select Board understands that our feeling that at face value, the sentiment though is correct, that affordable housing should be available throughout town, right? And not restricted, deliberately restricted to any specific neighborhoods. The question from the Select Board was, do you really want to make an amendment, or do you just want to stand up and say, you should vote against it because it doesn't reflect the way housing gets built, it doesn't reflect, the fact is, the sentiment behind it is reflected in our mission, it's reflected in our guiding principles, it's codified in our inclusionary zoning for the town, as well as our overlay districts, and we work within the guidance. Part of our mission and principles is we work within the tenets of the master plan and the MBT Zoning Communities Act, put, in our zoning bylaws, including inclusionary zoning, and we're looking at needs assessments, like the senior needs assessment, and will be guided by the housing production plan. And so there was discussion among the select board that maybe that's the best, the best path forward, not to give this too much air. I understand the point, I see the point, that's a way of handling it. For me, Ed and I spoke in preparation for the meeting. I understand the desire to make, because this was the amendment was originally Hank's idea at our last meeting, and it's attractive to me because it's sort of saying, yes,
In concept.
you put this forward because you don't like the fact that we're doing the work we're doing, right? And the article statement that gets published with it from the proponent is accusatory of the trust in general, and let's face it, it's not a very veiled poke at Ed and myself in our roles in specifically in creating the trust.
So
I don't care about that harassment piece.
Right.
It's meaningless to me. It says nothing about us as a trust or us as individuals. It says everything about the proponent.
And yet, to your point, that creates an official record of some sort, and so
Right.
we're trying to figure out how to best grapple
And
with that.
so-
Yes.
Either way, if we decide as a trust, you know what, it's not worth the oxygen in the room and the time to say, let's amend this. The way the town moderator indicated would handle it is the proponents would still have their 7.5 minutes. The 7.5 minutes in opposition could be either in direct opposition to the article or in support of the amendment. The way the vote happens is there's a vote on the amendment. So the article gets amended, and then there's a vote for the article. So you vote
As amended.
Amended.
The amended.
And if that
the
fails,
amendment
then it goes
passes.
back to the original motion.
So to be clear, the select board said no. It just said no,
The
not
le-
voted on the
le-
amending
lex-
one, but
The select board said, as written, the citizens petition unanimously
Unanimously.
do not vote.
Right,
vote
and that's all
against
they can deal with
at this time.
Okay,
at
they
this
can't look
time
at a
because there's
motion.
no motion, no amended motion on the floor.
Right.
Because we're
Now,
not in
the
town
select,
meeting.
so if we make an amendment, the select board and the advisory finance committee are they technically we post meetings that run in concurrence with town meeting, which gives the AFC and the select board the ability to re-vote or to vote
For the amendment. that's
recommended
it.
or against, or any other vote we feel we need to take related to the warrant articles that's happening physically during town meeting. So
can we
town
do
meeting's
it?
happening, there's also an AFC and a select board meeting happening at the same
Can
time.
we do an either or? Could we say we vote no, we recommend to vote no, and here's why? But then if it looks like it's going to pass, then propose an amendment, or
no,
do we have
so
to make a
we-
choice up
First thing-
front?
First thing you have to do is make the amendment.
Right.
You do you make the amended motion, which
Yeah.
The
John knows that we're gonna do, and so
Right.
when he, he'll recognize me first, because since it talks about
Sure.
the AFC, I said I'd like to, propose an amendment to the article. I would, we'll have this ready, printed up for display on the main screen. I can talk to that a little bit. We then immediately go into discussion of the motion. Okay,
If you
before
make
we,
the amendment, you go into discussion of the amendment.
of the amendment, of the amended,
Then there's
yes,
there's a
article.
vote on the amendment, then there's a vote on the motion as amended,
Right.
and then hopefully we're done.
Right. I mean, I can make this amendment and then go
Does-
through why we're doing this.
It does,
Yep.
it does draw more time and attention to this. In my, in in my mind, my first version of the slide, it was a cartoon that said, "Here we go, another teachable moment." You know, it's like, this is an opportunity, to educate, to keep it, knowing that we have 2.5 minutes, right? When we make the motion,
Yes.
from the time you say we move to amend, you have 2.5 minutes to get through, which is why there are only three slides. So I did not include a slide with our mission and our guiding principles. But what I'm actually thinking of doing is, if we make the motion, walk through the 2 slides,
Yeah.
right? And then put our mission and the guiding principles on a slide that you just put up while
For
debate is
questions.
happening. While debate is happening.
Yeah.
So I guess, I'm interested in hearing strategy and
I
feeling of the
think, I
trust.
think it's important, a vote against the basic motion, the original motion, the original warrant article, may be confusing to some people in believing that we're voting to not support affordable housing.
Right.
If you change the word to a word that supports and reinforces everything that we're doing, and then you vote in favor of it, it's a vote in favor of affordable housing and in favor of implementing affordable housing in accordance with all the guidelines that have been put in place for the last 30 or 40 years in zoning and
Yep.
other things. So to me, it's a small change, but it's psychologically very important.
Because it basically almost flips
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
the possible intention, and especially if you read
The word equitable.
the article, the supporting information, the comments on the article, which I
Yes.
don't know if people have looked at, but, it sounds like, oh, we're bad people
It actually
doing bad
supports
things.
us. This
Yes.
petition, in some ways, to your point, is a moment for education, an opportunity for education, and a support, a little pep rally for the housing trust as amended.
And part of
Yes.
in the speaker notes, Ed can mention that the trust was created by unanimous vote.
Yeah.
Of town meeting. And, this is reaffirming the town's support for affordable housing and the need for more generally housing affordability in our community. I see it that way. I don't believe that kind of affirmative statement is actually the intent, right?
But we can make it that.
This is, I'll be perfectly blunt, this is a bait, right? It's like, oh, they say we want a petition that looks like it supports affordable housing, but then everyone, all the boards say defeat it, and the why gets lost in the nuance. It's like, so the town's really against affordable housing. Why do we have this trust? Why do we do the work? And so, I understand the select board member's position saying don't give it oxygen. But at the same point, I think we can, the
Take
amendment
advantage.
turns it to something that is actually, it actually reflects, and we can bring it out where it reflects the mission of the trust and our guiding principles as supported by unanimous town meeting vote.
Well, and I was thinking initially, maybe it is best just to have a yes, no vote, and then I thought about that, well, if this one doesn't pass, the amended version doesn't pass, we're no worse off. We're kind of,
That's right. You can still
there's no
defeat-
downside,
yeah.
right? Whether
Yeah,
it
so-
passes or
To
not, we
defeat
get
the
some, we get a
so-
statement out there.
So the request to the, my comment to the select board is if we make an amendment, that we would ask that the select board, at that point in time, we would ask that the select board support the amendment, support the amended motion, and should that not pass, vote against the original petition as previously voted, and recommend that. And so it's like,
Now,
it just adds complexity.
Will the select board and the committee know in advance that we've proposed this? This will be in this,
So-
will be in, it won't
so
be on the
I-
floor, it will be
I've
provided in
I've
advance.
drafted,
Yes.
I didn't include it because it's way too long, I need help editing it, but, I did draft a memo that could go to the select board and
Yes.
the AFC
Okay,
to let them know that we intend to do this, why, and then again, ask that they vote in support of the amendment, in support of the amended motion, and should that not pass, should either not pass, vote against the article as written.
Does the planning board have the same concurrent meeting happening?
They don't call a concurrent meeting,
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, who?
the
Planning
planning
board.
board.
Planning board.
But if we
Planning
get, if
board-
we get the memo this week, they do have a meeting prior to town meeting.
The planning board has in the past expressed an opinion on discussion on the floor.
Yeah,
They have the ability to express an opinion.
yeah,
They can't take a vote. I don't know if they can take a vote.
yeah.
I was
Yeah,
just wondering if
they-
we could also
they-
include the planning board in this
Well,
memo.
we'll send the planning
Okay,
board to them.
okay.
Yeah, the planning board doesn't, like the AFC or the select board, review individual articles and vote support or non-support. Well, of these articles. They do of other articles such as, our R2, the 45 High Street and the Home Rule petition.
I would predict that the time impact of the amendment is about 15 minutes, because John Arnold, I would predict, I mean, I can't speak for John, but
No, it'll be,
he
we-
would say,
the amendment
okay,
doesn't, the
the
amendment
amend-
process doesn't add any discussion time.
right,
The time added is for votes.
right, so, John, I mean, we're not gonna delay the meeting for an hour or two by making an amendment.
Right.
We're gonna take a position.
I know that we're close to time here. We were really ahead of schedule, and now
Yeah, I know.
we're back to
Yeah.
close to time. I'm curious if there's going to be any preparation for a response to Article 38, because we're named in that article, not in the actual article. Oh, no. Yeah, we're not
Well,
named in the
it's-
actual
it's-
article.
We're named in it
the
for
So-
the,
information.
So-
let me,
Okay,
I'll
Sorry.
recognize you.
okay, I know, sorry. I get riled up.
I know
He
you
does
do.
get riled up.
Too much coffee.
That's for the, excuse me, for the senior center, to keep it where it is so that we can't get our hands on it or
Right.
something like that.
Can
Right.
we
And
have
now-
a separate conversation about that? Can we
Huh?
finish with the one we're dealing with and then have a
Oh,
conversation?
that's fine, I'm
If you
sorry.
don't mind. I don't-
Yeah, I
No,
just
no, no.
didn't know if we were
My
done with
mind
it.
doesn't work that way.
Okay, that's fine. I thought we had been finished. Any other questions on Article 41 in this presentation?
I mean, I think we need to make a motion that we authorize the chairman to offer this amendment on the floor, and that the chairman notify the moderator ahead of time that we intend to do that.
Right.
So moved,
Okay,
or second? I don't know what I'm doing,
Yeah.
but
Second, hold on.
a second for
way to be
that?
Hank is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I said, way to be Hank is basically what I'm saying. Yeah, so.
So I think we got a second from Kate.
I think so too.
Okay, that capture the motion.
All right, any discussion on that? We have a motion on the floor to basically support my making this motion, this amendment to the Article 14 motion, 41 motion. Any discussion?
I just want to say thank you to Hank for suggesting this at our last meeting. I think it's a really smart move.
Yeah.
So I appreciate your consideration on that. And then those of you who actually drafted the
Yes,
amendment, thank you very much.
the word
Okay.
equitably, that's perfect.
Okay.
Yes,
Um,
brilliantly done.
Given that, I'll take a vote. All those in favor? All right, that's 7-0. All right, you had a question on Article 38?
38, it states the Affordable Housing Trust in the article information, and I'm just wondering if there's been any preparation in terms of a statement for that, given the fact that we're listed there.
Basically, there was, Alan, at the combined AFC and a select board meeting to review all these. That was, when that article came up for discussion, did explain that we have been looking at the Westborough Housing Authority's land that's right along Rogers Road, somewhat adjacent to the current senior center as a possible development site. That's all we have done, and that we have also said if this was to be sold, or disposed of in some way, please, we would want to know. I mean, we would probably know anyhow through, select board hearings, et cetera. I don't think we need to say anything unless asked.
Okay.
And that would be our response. Very low key.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know at this point if the select board or the town manager's office will do a response to this. I don't expect there would be, in that.
I mean, a counter proposal or.
You know, just on why to
Why to
go
vote
against
no.
38. But, yeah, the article information sort of accuses, oh, this is a bait and switch, right? Like, as if we bought 1,500 just so that the housing trust could get the senior center building. Just so we're, trust the public's aware, for us to get the property, here's what needs to happen. So we are closing, the town's closing on 1,500. There's going to be a process that's going to take time to decide how the build-out's going to happen. The construction's going to happen, at which point the senior center will move its services to the new multi-generational community center. At that point, the building's vacant. The town then has to decide whether or not there's any municipal use for that building now, or if we project one into the future. And that's going to involve multiple committees looking at it, multiple departments looking at their long-term strategic plans. The capital planning expenditure committee will be thinking about, is there a capital need that can be met by that building? Is there a reason to hold on to it as a just in case? For example, the Regional Emergency Communication Center is currently, they're looking at the Harvey building, the old Harvey School on Phillip Street. If that turns out for some reason not to be viable, maybe the senior center would be a viable, backup to the backup location. For that, we have no idea. So then that has to happen. If the town decides, nope, we're going to get rid of the property, then the planning board has to subdivide the property and come up with the subdivision. Because the senior center property includes all of the recreation fields down below. Okay, and it extends partly into Cedar Swamp. So that would have to be cleaved off in a way that can work within our zoning rules. Okay, and they'd have to determine, it would still be municipal zoned, but there'd be some recommendation on underlying zoning. Okay, then town meeting has to vote to authorize the select board to actually dispose of the property. Select board just can't go say we're going to sell off town property. So that vote has to happen. And then the select board then has to decide how they want to dispose of the property. At which point, we would have an opportunity as a trust, if we wanted to buy the property, to participate in that process.
And I just pulled up the Texas, and it's obviously not, this is not targeted at us. We're mentioned, of course, in the discussion and a little sideswipe. So what if, and I don't know if people are thinking maybe we do want a response, but since the actual warrant is targeting the location of the senior center, I don't know that we have to get in the game on that per se. Now, if someone start asking about affordable housing, maybe there's a process to respond to questions or,
that's what I'm saying. I'm saying we wouldn't get up to address anything if a question came up.
Yes.
If somebody said, well, is this really what the trust wants to do? We would then respond.
And we meaning you and Alan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our official appointed representatives.
No, it's appropriate for officers,
Sure.
to respond, and we can do it in, to various degrees.
Right, depending on the extent
within
of
the
the
time
question,
frame
yes.
that we have.
All right.
So I think, does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you
Okay.
very much. I saw Alan's response in the AFC joint select board meeting, and so I appreciated that. I
Yeah.
just wanted to double check that was something that you were prepared to respond to if needed at town meeting floor. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. We had on here, Hank, anything more on High Street or Beach Street with Waterman? I don't know if there was any
Well,
to-dos.
we've been to the zoning board of appeals, we've been to
Oh, right, okay.
we've been to the planning board, we've been to the town planner, We've talked with the Director of Community Development. We've had a number of conversations with a variety of folks about how one would go about permitting
Right.
housing on these two properties. And the answer is pretty straightforward. The path leads to the ZBA.
Yes.
Whether we go to the ZBA under the 40B LIP process with the support of EOHLC, or whether we go independent of that, that's a decision for us to make. The ZBA basically said, gee, you guys are just another developer. We will apply to you the same rules and regulations or same thinking and approach that we would any other developer. Oh, by the way, we as a ZBA have no experience with a so-called friendly 40B. We're not sure exactly how that process would work. But, good luck to you. They did say that, their opinion, I would say, is that the community seems to want to support elderly housing more than it wants to support general population housing.
Like
But
work
that
floors.
that's not a formal position of theirs. Is they mentioned that historically the community has been resistant to housing development that would bring school children into the community,
Exactly.
which is an interesting position. It's not anything official or has any binding. We clearly, the planning board clearly clarified that we have no standing under the overlay, the senior living overlay district, because the properties are too small.
Right.
Both of the properties are non-conforming. So we really are at a point where we need to decide what do we really want to do, and then start through a process with, I would suggest we'll start through an LIP, a DOHLC process to get their support, because that's probably going to help you to get through the thing. And my guess at this point is what will drive the decisions on what we build, how we build it, et cetera, is going to be financing. Okay, putting together a package that meets community needs and can be financed at a cost that is reasonable, that a cost that the community can afford, is going to be the challenge. And at this point, we can either go find some consultants to help us figure a number of those things out, how to get through the 40B process, how to do some financial modeling, et cetera, or we can go try and find a developer who'll do that. I would be not surprised, amazed if a developer would want to take on the chore, because it's going to be expensive.
So if I may suggest as a next step, Senator Moore indicated that there are technical assistance grants available.
Okay.
Where the state, either directly or through MHP, could actually select and provide us with a consultant to develop project concepts and financing plans.
Right. One of MHP's, I don't want to say primary goals, but one of their missions is to provide technical assistance. That's in their, mission to municipalities. So that would
So-
probably be, once we get past, at least get the 45 High Street passed, might want to engage in them and say, okay, this is where we stand, and how can you help us?
Yeah, I'll take the action item to get the grant, the application and the information on that, so we know
Okay.
what's
Yeah, 'cause,
required of us to go
I
after
mean,
those.
my belief is we're looking
expertise.
at $200,000 worth of consulting help.
Oh,
At
probably,
least.
yeah.
At
yeah.
least 250, that's kind of the ballpark range of minimum number
Yeah.
that you're
But
going to
so
have,
if,
because,
but if the state has consultants under contract who can do that work without charging us for it,
yeah, I mean, if the state can fund it, that's
I'd be
fine.
more than happy to work
Oh,
with
yeah,
those
no, I have no
consultants.
problem. I mean, again, I think the thing is, at this point, we sort of understand the path we have to travel. We don't have enough specifics on the proposals we want to bring forward.
Right.
And at the end of the day, you can't bring forward a half a dozen proposals.
To
You
ZBA
can bring
to
forward
pick
one, maybe one and a half, maybe a Plan A and a Plan B, but you can't bring forward any more than that. And there's a lot of decisions we have to make, including, Do you go forward in parallel with both sites simultaneously? Do you do it separately? I mean, there's all sorts of decisions that we don't have the data to make.
So the feedback I've heard on that last item
Yeah.
is that the more units, the better. That a lot, for example, Metro West Collaborative Development says that they've really determined that their resources are best spent on projects over 30 units. That the lack of economy of scale on smaller projects. So having a 10 or 11 unit project is definitely going to be better than having a 4 over here and a 6, 7 over there as far as development goes. So,
Yeah, I just-
but we'll see.
My concern is that when you go, I don't know if the EOHLC will support going forward with concatenating two projects or two sites into one project. I have no idea how that will impact their support and the complexity of going through with this thing. I also don't understand how that will impact going to the ZBA and various regulatory authorities, because
Yep.
typically those two sites would go as separate
Right,
approaches.
separate parcels or development.
Separate
Okay.
filings, if you will.
Given the timing, we do have a 10:30
Yep.
housing production meeting,
Yep.
roundtable, whatever you want to call it.
Would you like a motion to adjourn?
So I would like to have a motion to adjourn.
I can do that.
I will second.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. And thank
We
you,
got through a
Westborough
lot.
TV.
Yes.